shall we begin?
Let the games begin.
All right.
A new age has begun. An age of freedom.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
Get to the chopper!
This is going to be quite the ride.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host, Christian Renteria, and this is the podcast where we talk about all the big breaking movie news items of the week, along with the trailers that came out this week and the movies that are out in theaters and streaming for all your viewing pleasures. Hello, everybody. So, first and foremost, of course, I would like to apologize for not having a podcast last week. If you follow the Twitter account that I made for the podcast, I did update you guys up on there. I had a family member go through something, and they had to go through surgery, and obviously my focus was, my family and I's focus was on that. So I apologize for that. But I'm back this week. This week seemed pretty normal in terms of in terms of everything, going straight and no bumps along the road. So let's just get right to it because I don't want to waste any more time. Let's get right to the movie news items. Of course, we're going to start off like we always do here on the podcast with Trailer Talk.
Coming soon to theaters.
The first trailer we're going to talk about is Disney and Pixar released a new trailer for Lightyear, and it gives us a better idea what the movie is about. The movie itself is, of course, an origin story of sorts for the character of Buzz Lightyear, because the movie is based on the actual man that inspired the toy in the Toy Story universe, Buzz Lightyear, which is pretty much the reason why Buzz is not voiced by Tim Allen in this movie. He is instead voiced by Chris Evans. Anyway, the trailer, I don't want to give too much away from the trailer, but it does show us that Buzz is running a mission to a new planet, and something happens, and he ends up years in the future on a hostile planet where he meets a ragtag rebel crew and must stop the takeover of Emperor Zurg and his robot army. Of course, Zurg, from the Toy Story movies that we already know. But this voice cast is pretty cool. Like I mentioned, Chris Evans voicing Buzz himself. Uzo Abdaba, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She was from Orange and the New Black. She voices Buzz's commander and best friend, Alicia Hawthorne, as we learn in the trailer. Peter Son, who has voiced a lot of characters in the Disney Pixar movies. He's voiced characters for Ratatouille, WALL-E, Monsters University, and just recently in Luca. He will be voicing the robot companion, the cat that Buzz carries around, that we've seen in the trailers and posters and stuff. It really bothers me that the voice sounds a little like my first reaction when I first heard that voice. The first reaction was like, is that Tom Hanks? Like, did they find someone to purposely sound almost like Tom Hanks? But it's not Tom Hanks. Who's Keke Palmer's in there. She plays Izzy Hawthorne, which if you watch the trailer, you know kind of the relationship there. Taika Waititi is voicing a character in the movie, a character named Mo Morrison, and there's another character of Darby Steele that is voiced by Dale Soules. James Brolin himself, although we don't hear him talk in the trailer itself, it has been announced that he will be voicing the character of Zurg. Lightyear will open on June 17th. I kind of been looking forward to this. I think it's an interesting idea. I know a lot of people are very confused, and a lot of people probably don't like the idea, but this trailer kind of sold me on it a little bit more. I was already bought into the idea of the movie. I was going to go watch it, but this trailer definitely it gives us a lot more. I mean, the trailer that we've already seen doesn't really give us too much. Kind of see Buzz running around and stuff, and running around from aliens and robots and stuff like that. This gives us a better idea on what's actually going on and everything like that. So if you're on the fence, maybe you watch this trailer and you'll be happy and excited for what you see. And the big trailer that came out this week is, of course, the much anticipated first trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder. It's finally here. Taika Waititi returns behind the camera. He also co-wrote the script, along with, of course, Chris Hemsworth as Thor. Marvel did release a full synopsis, which I will read because it gives you pretty much a broad overview of what the movie is about. The film finds Thor on a journey unlike anything he's ever faced, a quest for inner peace. but his retirement is interrupted as a galactic killer known as Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale, who seeks the extinction of the gods. To combat this threat, Thor enlists the help of King Valkyrie, aka Tessa Thompson, Korg, of course, once again, motion captured and voiced by Taika Waititi himself, and ex-girlfriend Jane Foster, who will be played by the returning Natalie Portman, who, to Thor's surprise and to probably anybody else, is inexplicably wields the magical hammer Mjolnir. Mjolnir. I try not to say the way that Kat Dennings' character says it, and whatever. As the mighty Thor. Together, they embark on a harrowing comic adventure to uncover the mystery of the God Butcher's vengeance and to stop him before it is too late. So that's the official synopsis they pulled out. The trailer itself, it's a short trailer. It's pretty much a teaser, really. It's probably like a minute and a half long, along those lines, and it starts off with this kind of really cool transition shot of a young Thor running in the woods, and he gets older and older, and there's a lot of shots of him sporting the kind of classic Thor armor from the comics, which is pretty cool. And then the rest of the trailer plays out with the Guns N' Roses song "Sweet Child of Mine" playing throughout the trailer, which is just a chef's kiss of all things. And there's a lot of great shots in here and a lot of cool tidbits. We see that Thor is working out and he's getting back into shape, so he's no longer really fat Thor, and throughout the trailer he's pretty much the skinny Thor throughout, so we'll probably have to see fat Thor in the beginning of the trailer, and then he'll get into the shape that he was beforehand. He is still with the Guardians of the Galaxy. It looks like they're on a mission on a planet that kind of looks like Sakaar, at least from the background a little bit. It may not actually be Sakaar, but I saw some people pointing out that it might be Sakaar, and I even looking at it myself, it kind of does look like Sakaar a little bit, but there is some blue people behind him. Maybe the Kree, or could be some other blue aliens. The only blue aliens that we really know of is the Kree in the MCU, so they could be introducing some new aliens in there. There's a shot of Olympus, which looks pretty cool, and we see Zeus, so we don't actually see him the front of Zeus, we see the back of Zeus, but we know it's Zeus because there's rumors that Zeus was going to be in the movie, and there's also rumors that Russell Crowe was going to play Zeus. And the only reason why everyone knows it's Zeus is because he's holding the lightning bolt that, of course, Zeus is very famous for. So we see that. There's a quick shot of Valkyrie, like I mentioned, in a suit. It looks to be like a boardroom. So it looks like, Asgard is joining the UN or something along those lines, kind of like Wakanda did at the end of Black Panther. So, and then, New Asgard also pops in. It looks like the town has gone through quite a resurgence. Under the rule of King Valkyrie, not Queen Valkyrie, King Valkyrie. Endgame, it kind of looked like, very bland, not a lot of color. And then now it looks like a little bit more color in there. So that's really cool. Some of the cool shots there is the space goat chariot. The space goats do have a name. I didn't write it down. I did see the names for orders and then write them down in my outline, but they do have names. So they are from the comics, and they can fly, obviously. There is that. But there is this one shot that everyone's kind of really loving. I mean, there's a couple shots that everyone's really loving, but there's one specific shot that in the teaser, it just looks like it's like, this grandiose, fitting in with all the great cinematography and all the great set pieces that the movie will have, but rather dark, really, probably in terms of the movie itself. At one point, Thor and Korg are looking at a dead giant creature in front of them, and from what I've been able to read and what everybody's been able to say online from Easter eggs and stuff like that, it is Falagar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Falagar the Behemoth, which is, in that shot itself, it is kind of a recreation of the comic book and the scene in the drawing, the panel rather, is what I was trying to say, of the comic where Gore the God Butcher actually debuts. And it's just Thor in the comic panel, but obviously Korg's there along with him. But it looks like maybe Thor's maybe that's the first time that Thor sees, one of these god characters dying, and he's getting a glimpse of it. Or we don't know what's going on, but that's, if Gore the God Butcher can take down a behemoth or a giant creature like that, I think we're in for some trouble. But of course, like I mentioned, the most talked about shot and anything, photo, whatever you want to call it, of the trailer is Jane Foster's reveal at the very end with the hammer that's pieced together. It does have cracks in it, so it's not necessarily fully recovered, I guess you could say. So there is cracks in it, but Jane has it. Jane has Mjolnir, and she has the Thor armor suit, and it looks like Thor is very surprised to see Jane. So it looks like there's a battle going on, but I don't know how that all fits in. Maybe he reunites with her, and she pulls out the hammer at some point when they're under attack or something. We don't know. But regardless, Thor looks very surprised to see her holding the hammer, and her and the Thor getup. So the Jane becoming Thor is actually from the comics. In the comics, Jane Foster has or gets cancer at one point, and she, I forget how exactly, but she is able to wield the hammer and becomes Thor herself. So it looks like they're taking that. I don't know what exactly will lead to Jane having the ability to wield Mjolnir here in the movie. Will she have cancer? In the MCU, there's been no real signs of that. Obviously, Jane Foster's kind of been, being MIA from all of the events in there. Well, I kind of put this thing together where it looks like Mjolnir is back together. So I kind of made it think that maybe she put it back together. Maybe she found the pieces and was able to put it back together, and that makes her worthy. Or, maybe they'll just do something else entirely. Maybe it's something else, like I mentioned entirely, with all the snaps that have been going on, the two snaps that, obviously changed everything in the MCU, maybe, something happened and it made Jane, worthy, of holding the hammer. So we don't know. Obviously we'll have to, wait and see. A lot of everything is speculation up until this point, but either way, we're getting, Jane Foster's Thor in the MCU, which is really, really cool. And we're getting Natalie Portman back. She's been gone. She didn't want to come back. She had a bit of a falling out, and now she's back with the MCU, which is really cool. So Thor Love and Thunder will open on July 8th. The trailer itself has been doing really good online. It's in the top 10 most watched trailers since its debut or something like that along those lines. But yeah, that's really cool. So there you go. Those are the trailers that came out this week. Let's move on to the movie news items of the week. All right, so we're going to have some quick fire movie news items here for you guys. If you're new to the podcast, it's been a while since I've actually really done quick fire and said that it's quick fire. These are just pretty much self-explanatory movie news items that I still want to talk about. Pretty much, like I mentioned, self-explanatory, not really much to go off of, but I still want to talk about them because obviously it's a big movie news item of the week. The first one came out. The 10th installment of the Fast and the Furious franchise has a title, and it's Fast X. Yes, like Jason X, but Fast X. Now knowing the title, we still don't know what the movie will be about, but production did officially start this week here on Wednesday. So filming has begun, and we don't know too much about it. Cast-wise. Only officially, at least the names that are confirmed right now, Vin Diesel, Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese, Ludacris, and Sang King will all return with the movie. Or all return, to the movie, along with director Justin Lin, who of course made his return to the franchise, directing Fast 9 or F9 rather. New cast members includes Jason Momoa, Daniela Manquire from the Suicide Squad. She played Ratcatcher 2, and Brie Larson, who was announced by Vin Diesel himself. Although we don't know who they are playing, although Momoa did tease that he's playing someone on the villain side, so there's that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I am sure that more people will join along the way, but some names that aren't confirmed that seem odd, considering, the movie's all about family. Natalie Emmanuel's character Ramsey, Charlize Theron's Cypher, and even Jason Statham's Deckard Shaw. They were not announced part of the cast list. I'm sure they will probably come back at some point through filming, especially with that post-credit scene for Deckard, Jason Statham's character. Of course, John Cena may come back in some form or another. Maybe they're gonna have him come back, near halfway through the movie or something. Who knows? But there is that. Other small roles like Helen Mirren's Queenie Shaw and Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody can also pop up in cameo roles. So even if they're not announced to come back, they could pop up in surprises and stuff like that. But there is one name that's definitely not coming back, and that's Dwayne Johnson's Hobbs, because obviously Dwayne Johnson and Vin Diesel still have their beef. So that's not happening anytime soon. But Fast X will come out on May 19th, 2023, which is next year. yeah, I mean, there's the Fast X. Sure, why not? I got nothing else, but I don't really have anything to say. I think the last two Fast and the Furious movies have been haven't been up to par, I guess. I am a fan of the franchise. I love the ridiculousness of it. I do think that these last two movies have kind of probably been, I don't want to say too over ridiculous, but I think they were just not the strongest entries of the bunch. I think Justin Lin coming back is a pretty good trajectory. Obviously, Justin Lin changed the franchise with Tokyo Drift, and then he directed Fast and Furious, which was part 4, and then he did Fast 5, which obviously reinvigorated the franchise, and did Fast 6, and he left, and Furious 7 was done by James Wan, who came in, and obviously Furious 7 had the whole thing with Paul Walker when he passed away, and then The Fate of the Furious was the first movie without Paul Walker, and also brought in a different director, and that was when the drama between Johnson and Diesel started, and then we have Fast 9. So I don't know. These last two movies just haven't been up to snuff, and I hope that Justin Lin coming back, he can finish off the franchise in a positive way, at least his main line franchise, because they're doing spin-offs. Obviously Hobbs and Shaw's got a spin-off, and they're working on a second one supposedly, and I'm sure they'll probably do another spin-off at some point, but there you go. That's Fast X coming out next year in May. All right, moving on. I spent a little bit too much time than I thought I would on that one. Anyway, moving on. Amazon Studios is, according to Deadline, leading the bidding war for the live-action Voltron movie that was announced back last month. Rawson Marshall Thurber, who recently directed Netflix's Red Notice, is attached to direct the adaptation for the popular sci-fi anime series about a group of pilots who, when join their ships together, become the Defender Voltron. Other studios at the time, at the initial reporting, that were bidding for this package was Warner Brothers, Universal, and 5 other studios and streamers that were not named. Netflix, interestingly enough, when that report came out, was not one of those studios and streamers that were going for Voltron, despite having a Voltron animated series on their platform. But yeah, there you go. So Amazon's leading the bidding war, and it looks like they might actually be getting Voltron. So good for them. If it's the case, I don't know how I feel about. I mean, they've been trying to do Voltron for a long time, like really long, but just hasn't worked out. And I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily trust Rawson Marshall Thurber. I mean, he's fine, but I don't know if I trust him with Voltron. I don't know if he's just if he can knock it out of the park, then good for him, and I will eat my words. But I don't know. I don't know. Moving on. Let's just move on. Andy Serkis is finally set to direct an animated adaptation of George Orwell's classic Animal Farm for Any Venture and his company, The Imaginarium. Production is currently underway at Cinestates, which is a effects company, and they're actually celebrating their 30th anniversary in animation and VFX. Nicholas Stoller, who wrote the 2011 Muppets movie Storks and recently Dora the Lost City of Gold, wrote the screenplay for the movie, which again, Serkis has been circling for a while. The last iteration was set up at Netflix, but never got off the ground for some reason, probably due to budgetary reasons. I think Andy Serkis played around with doing motion capture for that movie. He wasn't going to make it a fully animated. I think he wanted to do motion capture, and Netflix was like, no, we're not doing that. I don't know why they wouldn't do that with Andy Serkis, who was, of course, the pioneer of motion capture, but, whatever. Of course, the novel, published all the way back in 1945, follows a group of farm animals that rebel against their human owners in hopes of creating a society where they can be equal, free, and happy. And, of course, if you've read the book, there's a lot more to it. There is a lot more to that book. And it's a great read. It's very short. It's not a gigantic book. So if you want to go read it, if you never read it, I don't know if they still have kids read it. I read it in high school. I read it very early. I read it my freshman year in high school. So I know all about that book. But yeah, there you go. Like I mentioned, the movie is currently underway, but there is no projected release date at the moment. I am happy that Andy Serkis finally gets to direct a Animal Farm movie, because he's been wanting to do that for a while. That's one of his passion projects that he's been wanting to get off the ground. Moving on to the next movie news item, the long-gesturing Minecraft movie, live action Minecraft movie, is in final negotiations with Jason Momoa to star. The movie will be directed by Jared Hess, who directed Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre. The very popular video game debuted all the way back in 2011 and allowed players to use blocks and create structures and worlds. There's also a lot more to that game, but that's pretty much the main gist of it. The movie has been in the works for some time as well, with directors like Sean Levy, who of course recently just directed The Adam Project on Netflix, and Free Guy, and Rob McElhenney, I think that's how you pronounce his last name. I always mispronounce his last name, but he, one of the creators and directors and writers of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, he was attached at some point as well, before Hess became involved, I think last year, maybe a few years ago, something along those, a couple years ago, something like that. No word on who or what Momoa will play, because the game does have zombies, and they also have, or Endermen, as they call them. Or no, yeah, there's zombies, then there's Endermen, and then there are also dragons. I don't play Minecraft, but I know a lot of people that do, so that's how I know all the terms. So yeah, there you go. That's what they're working on. Moving on to another video game adaptation, Sega has given Paramount Pictures another video game series to get the movie treatment, Streets of Rage. Not only that, John Wick and Nobody writer Derek Kolstad wrote the script on a spec. Wrote a spec script for it, and looks like they're going to be using his script. By the way, if you don't know what a spec script is, it's a script. Spec scripts usually are written by writers outside the studio system, as they like to call it, for free, in hopes that they can get a chance to present the script to a producer or a studio, or that they would end up seeing it somewhere and they would end up buying it. So a lot of big movies have been based off of spec scripts. For example, obviously the big one, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, Good Will Hunting. They wrote that script on their own, and they shopped it around, and obviously someone bought it and made it into a movie. There's but some other ones as well, for whatever reason. That's the only one that jumps to my mind. But I think Shawshank Redemption was also a spec script. The initial writer who wrote the movie wrote it on a spec script, and for whatever reason his name is not coming to me. But I think Shawshank, the original Shawshank script, was a spec script. It wasn't written by the studio. It was written by, a writer somewhere else. And a lot of times spec scripts are usually written by, up-and-coming writers, or writers who, not a lot of people know. Well-known writers, sometimes even some directors who, write their own movies do write spec scripts. But a lot of the time, obviously, they have a better chance of getting their script getting picked up by a producer or a studio than, Joe Schmo from the streets. But anyway, Derek Kolstad wrote the script, and obviously Paramount picked it up. The video game rather, was first released in 1991 and was a side scroller that followed two or three police officers. I haven't played the game in a while, who battle a crime syndicate led by Mr. X, who is corrupting the city. The series is still going on. The last game was actually released back in 2020. So if you want to go find that, you can. The movie will be produced by Escape Artist and by DJ2 Entertainment, which produced the Sonic movies. So obviously there's a connection there with Paramount. They're also doing the adaptation of the popular and award-winning video game It Takes Two for Amazon for both TV and film, which, by the by, the It Takes Two adaptation recently got another producing company behind it in $7 Productions, which, yes, is the production company for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So there you go. I remember playing Streets of Rage a lot. If you want to compare it to something else, you can compare it mainly. One of the things that I usually compare it to and sometimes confuse is Double Dragon. The video game Double Dragon. So, and Double Dragon got a movie back in the 90s. It's not great. I watched it last summer. Not that great. But it's the concept of the side scroller kind of action beat 'em up video game is pretty much the same like that. So there you go. Streets of Rage is your being written by Derek Kolstad, being released by Paramount. Obviously, Paramount's finding a lot of success with the Sega adaptations, with Sonic. So they're trying to, obviously this is going to be very different. Streets of Rage is a more, action oriented and not, as opposed to Sonic. So I don't know if it's going to be completely different, but we'll have to wait and see on how they approach that, because there's no word on how, they're approaching the material. So be interesting to see how they approach that. But yeah, there you go. All right, so those are your real quick fire movie news items. Let's move on to the big movie news items of the week. This is kind of where they start to blend together a little bit. Because the first real big movie news I'm going to talk about is that Bloody Disgusting, the horror website, has learned that Lionsgate is actively seeking out pitches for another Leprechaun movie. So besides that initial report, there's nothing else to report on. They've just heard that Lionsgate is now openly willing to hear pitches for another Leprechaun movie. Interestingly enough, Darren Lynn Bossman, who recently directed Spiral, the Saw movie that came out this year. I didn't watch it. That's why I can't remember if it was this year or last year. I think it might have been last year. Anyway, no, it was last year. He has publicly asked, or has been asking, Lionsgate to let him tackle a Leprechaun movie for a long time. So he's been asking for it, and something that would probably please fans rather, is that he would want to bring back Warwick Davis, who of course played Leprechaun throughout the initial run of the series. These last two Leprechaun movies that came out were kind of reboots, and they had other people play the Leprechaun himself, and he wouldn't want to reboot the franchise. He would actually want to make a direct sequel to the series and keep the horror comedic tone from those movies, which is rather interesting to see, how he would be able to do that, and not make it overly cheesy, especially the latter movies, which have been extremely cheesy. But yeah, I don't know. The Leprechaun movies, I think there's, they have their fans. I don't think I'm one of them. Especially the later half of movies, they're just weren't for me. I haven't seen any of the rebooted ones though. I have to be honest, I have not seen any of the rebooted Leprechaun movies that they did. The last two, which were reboots and stuff like that. I haven't seen those, but I remember Leprechaun in Space. I remember the Back to the Hood movies. I think the first Back to the Hood movie wasn't that bad. I think, once you embrace the fact that it's a horror comedy, I think it was fine. It wasn't awesome, but for what it was trying to do, I think it was fine. But obviously the first Leprechaun movie, which I just watched recently, like the last half of it on Sci-Fi, because, they obviously had it on for St. Patrick's Day. And I remember watching it, I was like, man, this is still a little cheesy, but I don't know. I guess I'm not the biggest Leprechaun fan in the world. But on top of that, the website Blair Discussing also learned that Lionsgate is also looking to relaunch the Blair Witch Project franchise. This news comes from Jeff Snyder from The Inkler, and Jeff Snyder is, this guy is an Hollywood insider. He's been, breaking movie news items for, a lot of years, and a lot of time he's right, a lot of time he's wrong. So you kind of just have to take this as a grain of salt. But as, just like the Leprechaun news, that's all he reported on. He just reported that, Lionsgate is looking to relaunch the Blair Witch Project franchise. Again, this is kind of interesting enough. The original creators and directors, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez, spoke to Bloody Disgusting's podcast, The Boo Crew, 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago, and told them that Lionsgate was, quote, not too interested in our input, which is sort of ironic, but whenever they're ready, we're hanging out if you want us to come back and take a stab at it. So they have ideas. They've actually have talked, over the years that they have had ideas to do, what they could do if they went back to do the Blair Witch Project movies. So that comment obviously, brings to the fact that, yeah, they had nothing to do with the last two Blair Witch Project movies. They had nothing to do with Book of Shadows, which was the sequel. They had nothing to do with the 2016 direct sequel to the first movie, Blair Witch. So the fact that, these guys, went on their own, did the Blair Witch Project, which, is on a lot of people's list as the most scariest movie out there. It's one of the best found footage movies. It started this amazing trend, viral marketing that the people have been trying to replicate since this day. It was one of those flash in the pan movies that just took the world by storm. And the fact that they want to relaunch it, there's a lot there. There's a lot of lore there. There's been like comic strips and there's been like video games, I think. There's just a lot there that they could have, mined from. And for whatever reason, they just, they didn't bring the guys that created this, monstrosity and this monster of a found footage movie and this movie in general that, gave us the found footage genre pretty much, that inspired, the found footage genre for, there was found footage movies before, but, it was the Blair Witch Project that kind of, blew it up a little bit. So, I always find that weird that they never, but it's Hollywood and it was Hollywood back in the day. So they're like, we bought the movie and it's ours now, forget you guys, but whatever. So I don't know. I think I am probably more interested in seeing what they would do with the Blair Witch Project. I honestly had to go back and watch Book of Shadows because I remember watching it and thinking it was not good when I first watched it. So I probably had to go back and watch it because I probably didn't give it a fair chance because I think I was expecting something like the Blair Witch Project where it was just found footage, and that's not what the movie was. And it's not what the movie is, in case you're, wondering and never watched it. But then Blair Witch, the 2016 movie, came out, and I was excited for that because it was done by the guys that did You're Next and The Guest. I love those guys. And for Adam Wingard, there you go. He was the director, and Simon, I can't think of his last name. I know his first name is Simon, but they did it. Now I obviously a huge fan of You're Next and The Guest, and I was like, I can't wait to see what these guys do with the Blair Witch. And it was one of those movies that was done in secret because originally it was called The Forest, and there was nothing really known about it. It was like it's a horror movie. It's called The Forest, and then I think it was at Comic-Con that year, that 2015 or 2016, the year it came out, where they're like, oh yeah, this movie that we're doing, it's actually Blair Witch. And people got really excited because it was them. It was also noted that it was going to be a direct sequel to the first movie, so it wasn't going to reboot the movie. It was ignoring Book of Shadows. It was, again, direct sequel to the first movie. And I went to go watch it, and it was okay. I think that final act of the movie is pretty good. I think it introduced something that was pretty cool in terms of what it was trying to do, but I wish there was more of it throughout the whole movie. Because by the time you get to the end, you're like, but then that final act starts and picks up, and you're like, okay, this is really cool. And then you get invested in it, and then it's over. So I don't know. It was fine. I don't hate it like a lot of other people do, but I also haven't watched it since then, so I probably have to go back and watch it again. But for the relaunch, I'm game for it. Lionsgate wants to take another stab at it, and they want to bring back the original guys who started it. I think that would be a nice kind of full circle moment, but we'll have to wait and see if that actually happens. This next movie news item is kind of a bummer because I was actually kind of looking forward to seeing what they would do with this. But Karyn Kusama's Dracula movie, which was set up at Blumhouse with Miramax, co-producing, and was set to go into production next month, is now no longer happening. It's considered dead. So sources told multiple outlets that Miramax exited the project over creative differences with Kusama that torpedoed the movie, which was set to be a modern take on the mythos of the character of Dracula. The movie was going to be titled Mina Harker, which would have been played by Jasmine Cephas Jones, who I believe is from the TV series Blindspotting. That's where she was from. As the title character, Mina Harker, who meets Dracula in the modern day Los Angeles. The movie was going to be written by Phil Hay and Matt Manfredi. Manfredi. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Apologize if that's not how you say your last name, sir. Who co-wrote Kusama's other movies like The Invitation and Destroyer, which if you've not watched The Invitation, I highly recommend you do. Destroyer is pretty good too. I don't know if that's probably I think my favorite movie of hers is The Invitation. She also directed Aeon Flux and Jennifer's Body, which I know Jennifer's Body has kind of gone in this resurgence of love over the years, and I guess I had to go back and rewatch it because I remember watching that movie and not liking it whatsoever. But she also directed episodes of *Halt and Catch Fire*. She also directed the pilot episode of *Yellow Jackets*, which I heard is also very good. I have not watched it, but I heard it's very good. But they were all going to be doing this movie, and the movie was announced 2 years ago. And the announcement seemed to excite a lot of fans, including myself, because at that point everyone kind of knew these three for The Invitation and I think Destroyer had already come out, and they were just waiting to see. And obviously the love for Jennifer's Body had kind of been starting over again. So everyone really liked her, and everyone, I was excited for it. At that point, I had finally watched The Invitation, and I loved that movie. I thought it was really good. That kind of a nice slow burn thriller. It's not a horror movie. It's really kind of like the slow burn suspense thriller, which I highly recommend you watch if you want to watch. Again, it's not a horror movie per se. It's more of a thriller. It really is more of a suspense thriller. So if you really want to watch something that you haven't watched before, watch The Invitation. I really recommend that. But again, yeah, I just seen that and I was like, okay, I can't wait to see what she does with Dracula then. And this is what she's capable of doing. But the project, obviously, it's a shame to see the project going south because creative differences is always annoying in Hollywood. Like scheduling conflicts, I get because, stuff gets delayed or, pushed forward because of whatever. Creative differences is annoying because creative differences is like, especially with this, like, they said like they were going to start filming next month. And for you to have, granted, I think anybody really would rather, if I was the head of the studio, I would rather, if there was creative differences, I would rather deal with it before camera started rolling and we started spending money. But at the same time, it's like you've had this project was announced 2 years ago. They've probably had the script done for probably a little bit. I mean, unless they went back and they changed something that the studio, that especially Miramax mostly, because Miramax is the one that's getting, the one that was announced that, they pulled themselves away from the project and, didn't want to do it anymore. So it's not really on Blumhouse. It's not really on Kusama for, because we don't know anything. It was really on Miramax for being like, we don't like the direction you're taking and we're taking the movie away and we're canceling the project with, less than a week, less than 3 weeks left, before we start rolling cameras. And that kind of sucks. But, again, I guess it's better to do it now than when cameras rolling or, in the solo, a Han Solo story or Star Wars story case, they're already halfway through filming and then, they have creative differences and they have to go back and refilm everything or refilm a lot of the movie. So I don't know. I'm really bummed about this because I really wanted to see what Kusama was going to do with Dracula, especially again, considering, that I've seen, a good, chunk of her work already. But I don't know. This is kind of a bummer news. So hopefully, someone else picks it up. I guess Miramax was like, they might actually own the rights. Because I did find it weird, like, Miramax was like, they didn't like the direction and they, pulled themselves away from it and torpedoed everything from going down. So they probably own the rights to Dracula, at least to the story or something. So I don't know. I just find that weird. Maybe I had to do a little bit more research on that, but I'll leave that in to make myself look foolish if that's not the case. But, regardless of that, I just found that, kind of weird, but, whatever. Moving on. Let's move on to the next movie news item. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are reuniting once again for a true life story of former Nike executive Sonny Vaccaro for Amazon Studios. Affleck will direct, co-write, co-star, and produce in the movie, with Damon helping out with the writing and producing and also starring as well. Damon will play Vaccaro, while Affleck will play Nike co-founder Phil Knight. The untitled movie will follow Knight's long-shot effort to, quote, sign rising basketball superstar Michael Jordan to its shoe company in the mid-'80s, an endorsement that seemed impossible at the time, but thanks to the maverick sneaker salesman, would become one of the most significant relationships between an athlete brand and an athlete, which is very true because we're still, Nikes, Air Jordans are still very popular to this day. ESPN did a 30 for 30 documentary in 2015 called Soul Man, Sole, which centered on Vaccaro and his story, so they might be taking a lot of cues from that, especially considering that the movie will be produced by John Weinbach, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right, who served as a producer on that. He actually co-directed that movie as well, and he's a basketball industry veteran himself. He also produced The Last Dance, which was, of course, about Michael Jordan himself, so there's a lot of that going on. But this is pretty cool, the fact that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, obviously themselves big basketball fans, big sports fans, and so it'll be interesting to kind of see them tackling a story that's not about Boston, since obviously they're very big Boston sports fans. But this is pretty cool that they want to do that, and obviously Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, getting off, reuniting with the Last Duel, which came out last year, which I still haven't seen. I know I'm a bad podcast host, but I do. It's right there. It's right. It's right in my top 5 watch list to watch. I'll get to it before the year. Definitely before the year's out. Definitely before the summer's out. There you go. Definitely before the summer's out, I will watch The Last Duel. Anyone who's listened to this point, or is listening to this movie news item, by the end of the summer, you can tweet at me, you can DM me, and tell me, have you watched The Last Duel yet? You idiot. And I will know that you are a real fan and listen to the podcast because of that. So anyway, yeah, they're working on this movie. There's there's nothing really else to say. There's no early production start date. I guess they just picked it up, and Affleck and Damon will be kind of reworking the script that's available to them at the moment, because I guess it was written by I didn't write that down. I know I knew I forgot something on this news item as soon as I read it. So there was a script out there already set up, and Affleck and Damon kind of bought it up, and they're going to go back and obviously freshen it up a little bit, and obviously put their own stamp on it. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, there you go. I watched The Last Dance. I think everyone kind of really watched The Last Dance because it was during COVID, and we had nothing else better to do. And The Last Dance documentary was very, very good. So obviously this is not probably going to be a documentary kind of style. I haven't seen Soul Man. I did see them promoting. I remember them promoting it, but I never actually watched it. But the 30 for 30 documentaries that ESPN does are very, very good. Even if you're not really a sports fan, those documentaries are very, very good if you want to, ever want to sit down and, watch something new that maybe you don't, on a subject you don't really know too much about. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. Obviously, they know each other very well, and we don't get them working together a lot, anymore. So seeing them back together working at it again is really cool. So I can't wait to watch that. And we'll call this the big movie news item of the week, at least at the time of this recording. Obviously, if anything drops, so I'll make a little thing right there. But for right now, this is the big movie news item of the week. Sony Pictures has rearranged their release schedule once again. The big one, of course, that everyone has been talking about, everyone has latched onto, is that they have once again delayed Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The movie was supposed to come out this year in October. However, now it will come out next year on June 2nd. That means that they've also moved Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 2 to March 29th of 2024, because they had the idea of releasing these movies somewhat, back-to-back, yearly anyway, back-to-back. But obviously with the first one getting pushed back, now they have to move back the second one as well. So we have to wait another year for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is very frustrating because a lot of people were looking forward to this. I know Sony, I know people behind the movie were very excited to release this movie this year, and they had to push it back for some reason. There's no reason given as to why, but I think what was it, last month we talked about some movies getting pushed back, and it was the Warner Brothers movies, the Warner Brothers DC movies. They all got pushed back because of a lot of their visual effects weren't done yet because of COVID procedures, because obviously they don't have. There were still, COVID procedures for the visual effects companies. So I don't know if this is it. They didn't give a reason as to why they're delaying the movies. Maybe that's the reason as well, that, they had to push the movie back because the effects weren't done yet or to their liking anyway. So that's a shame. It really is. Everyone was really bummed out online. I was really bummed out because I really was looking forward to this movie coming out this year. But, we'll have to wait another year, unfortunately, for a movie that we're excited for. We have to wait a little bit more. Sony also moved their live-action CGI musical comedy Lyle Crocodile, which is based off a book that got moved up. That didn't get moved back. That got moved up to November. It was going to come out in November. It is now coming out in October of this year. I wrote that very weirdly in my outline. So it was supposed to come out in November. It will now come out in the first week of October. They haven't given it an official release date, but in the news report said that it was going to come out the first week of October. So it may be like a middle of the week movie, or it may be at the end of the week movie. So there's that. Bouncing back to the Marvel associated properties, Sony has given a release date to their Madam Web movie that will come out next year on July 7th. Of course, that already has Dakota Johnson set to star. I believe one of the, what's her name? Cindy Sweetie, I think that's right. That's her name. From Euphoria, she's also set to star in that as well. So there is that. They've also given their aerial war epic Devotion a strategic release. I believe they are pushing this movie for an Oscars because they have a very weird release schedule. It will be opening on October 14th and then expanding on October 21st and then get a wide release on October 28th. You don't do that unless you want this movie to get nominated for the Oscars. So I think that's their big Oscar push movie. It is, by the way, the movie tells the story of two elite U.S. Navy fighter pilots during the Korean War who would ultimately become the Navy's most celebrated wingmen. Jonathan Majors and Glenn Powell will star in that. I believe those are the two people playing the pilots in the movie. So that is Devotion. And finally, Sony has given The Equalizer 3 a release date for next year on September 1st. So I believe production will be starting on that also rather soon. During the Oscars, Denzel Washington was asked about, or actually, I don't think he was asked about it. I think he just kind of said it, that The Equalizer 3 was going to happen and that the script was already done. So they were just waiting for, everything else to line up. But now Sony has given him a release date. So there you go. So yeah, Sony companies are still, pushing a lot of movies back. Obviously, the surge of new variants and, obviously the surge of numbers, going down and then going back up. And, the summer is right around the corner. So it's going to be very interesting to see kind of how movie studios handle their release dates at the moment. But we'll have to wait and see. But most importantly, we have to wait now for another year for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is very annoying. But there you go. And like I mentioned, that was that at the time of this recording, this is the biggest movie news item of the week. So if something else big drops, I'll drop it right here. If not, let us move on to this week's movies out in theaters and streaming for all your viewing pleasures.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
So I couldn't really find anything, at least nothing that I was able to find right away anyway, that stood out for streaming wise. I will say that the Batman is out on HBO Max now. Everyone's kind of been, putting up online. They've been watching the Batman over again. So, yeah, that's back, or that is finally out on HBO Max. If you want to go check that out. That's streaming wise anyway. So theaters, obviously where it's at. You wouldn't know it, with the pandemic out. But this week we have 3 new movies out in theaters, which is very, very cool. So we have The Bad Guys. I feel like this has been promoted for a long time. I don't know if it got pushed back because I remember seeing this trailer for the first time for a while, and they were promoting it, and then it got stopped, and then it got, it started all over again. But The Bad Guys itself, it is based off a book series. It follows several reformed yet misunderstood criminal animals attempt to become good with some disastrous results along the way. The voice cast is pretty impressive. You have Sam Rockwell, Awkwafina, Anthony Ramos, Mark Maron, Craig Robinson, Richard Ayoduyo, Zazie Beetz, Lily Singh, and Alex Bornstein. Very, very impressive voice cast. The movie itself, I don't remember ever reading this. I didn't even know what this was about. But The Bad Guys, there you go. Like I mentioned, this thing is, I feel like it's been promoted for a long time. And the other big movie coming out in theaters this weekend is, of course, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. This is the new Nick Cage movie where he plays a version of himself who gets paid to appear at a billionaire's superfan birthday party, but in reality, he is an informant for the CIA, or he becomes an informant for the CIA, since the billionaire is a drug kingpin, and they're obviously trying to, get him to, get some information on him. So Nicolas Cage, of course, plays himself. Pedro Pascal plays the drug kingpin. Tiffany Haddish, Ike Barinholtz, and Neil Patrick Harris all co-star in the movie. This movie's been getting very good reviews. It was touted for a while that this was, the movie. I forgot to look up if it was still the case, but for a while there, when people were watching this movie, it was touted as the only movie that still has a 100% Rotten Tomato score with all new reviews coming in. So a lot of people really seem to be liking this movie. This movie looks really funny. It's Nick Cage. He knows what this movie is. We know what this movie is. It looks like the movie knows what this movie is. So I'm really looking forward to watching this. I've been looking forward to this. Can't speak since it was announced, so for a while. So I'm really looking forward to, I can't speak. I don't know what happened. I move rooms and all of a sudden I can't speak. Anyway, yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while. So hopefully I get a chance to watch it in theaters, because I definitely want to watch this in theaters. But the last movie coming out in theaters this weekend is The Northman. Of course, that is the new movie written and co-written, I should say, and directed by Robert Eggers, who of course was the director of The Witch and The Lighthouse. It is an epic that follows a young Viking prince on a quest to avenge his father's murder. Alexander Skarsgård is that Viking prince in question. Nicole Kidman also co-stars. Anya Taylor-Joy's in there. Ethan Hawke, Bjork, of all people, is also in there, and as is William Dafoe. This is getting a lot of good reviews too. People are saying this thing is brutal. I've been looking forward to this since it was announced as well. It was Robert Eggers. I'm a huge fan of The Witch. I really like The Witch. The Lighthouse, I still to this day don't know what I watched, but it was there. The Northman does seem, I've been trying to avoid as much as possible reviews and stuff, but The Northman, I always thought, watching the trailers and stuff, this seemed like the first kind of real movie that was, how do I put this? Probably the first Robert Eggers movie that is, that could be viewed by anybody. Because I feel like The Lighthouse and even The Witch, for the most part, feel like movies that are, directed toward a specific audience. And I feel like The Northman could have gone to, or is kind of promoted and has been marketed as an experience for everybody. But if you know who Robert Eggers is, you kind of know that maybe, even the trailers, you can see that Robert Eggers aesthetic. You can see that he's still doing his style. But this seems kind of more of a commercial film as opposed to The Witch and The Lighthouse, which kind of felt, especially The Lighthouse, felt more kind of like, kind of like a art house kind of style, or an art house kind of audience. But The Northman kind of seems like this is for everybody. I don't know if that is the case. Again, trailers make it look like it's the Robert Eggers aesthetic. And but I'm really looking forward to seeing this. It looks brutal. It looks messy. It looks messy in a good way, obviously. But yeah, I've been looking forward to this for a while, and seeing the trailer for the first time, I was blown away by it, and I'm glad that I'm seeing a lot of positive reviews, or positive word of mouth anyway, for The Northman. So yeah, those are your movies coming out this weekend. The Northman, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and The Bad Guys. Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is the new movie by A24 with Michelle Yeoh. That got a theater boost earlier this week. So if you have a chance, if your theaters, if one of your theaters or your theaters nearby, if you haven't watched it yet, maybe they put it up on there. That got a massive theater boost, because it was only got a limited run, and then it got like over 2,000 theaters boost. So I think that's pretty cool. So if you haven't had a chance to watch it, go ahead and watch that as well. I guess that will be out in theaters as well, but that wasn't just for this weekend, it was during the week as well. So there you go. Again, The Batman up on HBO Max if you haven't watched it yet. But yeah, those are all your movies that are coming out in theaters this weekend. And that is it. That is it for the Movie Pit podcast. I really can't talk. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was the room change. Who knows? But anyway, that's it for the podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. As always appreciate you guys listening, as of course. Be sure to check out all of the links down below in the description/show notes area. It's the links for the socials, for Twitter, for Instagram. If you want to listen to the podcast on another platform, we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Stitcher, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on Anchor. I don't think I have the Anchor link on there, but we're on there. I'll remember, if I remember, I'll put it down there. But yeah, that we're all on those platforms, so you can take the podcast on the go, if whenever you want to listen to it. So and yeah. That's it. That's all I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast again this week. Hopefully you have a very fun, safe weekend. Remember to continue to be good people. Continue to be safe out there. It is not just from COVID, but from everything else, of course. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got for you guys. So thank you guys so much. I will hopefully see you guys next week for another podcast week. And as always, go watch some movies.
Whoop whoop! Yeah! Give it up! Movies!